Stock picking seems like it should be incredibly easy when I realize that I can simply go online, look up Warren Buffett's portfolio, and see all of his publicly chosen stocks. Now, this strategy is a great start, but it has one major problem if I'm going to just strictly do this, just look up his stock holdings and copy them. And that is that Warren Buffett only has to report his stock picks once every quarter. So if I see that he bought Google, it could be that he bought this company 3 months ago, it has since appreciated quite a bit, or his calculation of fair value has changed and it's no longer a good entry point to buy Google. Warren Buffett's whole strategy is buying great companies at a fair price, and it is actually rare to find great companies at a fair price. Normally these are trading at a premium because they are so strong. They typically have wide economic moats that give them pricing power and keeps away competition. And so finding these great premium companies at a fair price is actually very difficult. And if you're just going through and copying what Warren Buffett has done, you're probably not going to get in at a fair price. So in order to use this strategy to start with Warren Buffett's list of great companies, you still have to have one more step of determining their fair share price. In this video, I'm going to show an example of how I calculated the fair share price after going through all these companies, finding one that I think is particularly undervalued. And to do that quickly, I use my automated free cash flow valuation spreadsheet, which is in the description. If you're interested to download it, you can tweak it, make it your own, or just use it as it is. The way it works is I type in the company's stock ticker at the top. It automatically pulls all of the relevant information off of the internet, and then in the next tab, formats that data into nice rows and columns. On the next tab after that, it performs the discounted free cash flow valuation calculations, and then finally it spits all of that information out on the dashboard. After I went through all of Warren Buffett's companies, the one that I found that appeared to be the most undervalued was Verisign, and I was able to do this using 6 different assumptions on my discounted free cash flow spreadsheet. The first 2 assumptions are related to the free cash flow margin. This is the percentage of free cash flow that this company is able to create given its revenue. The next 3 cells are related to its revenue growth. And then finally, this is the discount rate. This is the minimum return that I want annually. So this free cash flow spreadsheet will calculate whatever share price is required for me to get this return every year given my set of assumptions. And remember, if you put in garbage assumptions, you're going to get garbage free cash flow valuation. So the assumptions that you put in here make a huge difference. Now, I like to focus on the free cash flow because free cash flow is the sum of money that a company is able to return to shareholders. They can use this money to pay dividends, to buy back shares, to grow the business organically or inorganically, which then creates more free cash flow in the future. They can also use it to pay off debt. So I prefer to look at free cash flow over things like profit because it is the most direct return of value to me, the shareholder. So in order to calculate the future free cash flow, I try to project future revenue. And to do that, that's the first step. I like to use the Analyst projections. The analysts are professionals. They devote their lives to studying these companies and coming up with the most accurate projections for how the company is going to perform into the future, which is so important to perform an intrinsic value calculation because the stock market is forward-looking. It's not just determining the current share price based on the current price to earnings ratio or the current price to book ratio or how much cash they have on hand. This is going to be looking at the forward performance of the company. How much money is this company going to make? And that is going to create the fair share price. So the first step is revenue. How much revenue is Verisign going to make into the future? The number one place that I like to look to get this information is Morningstar Equity Analyst Report. I love these reports because they also break down the company, the future prospects of the company, whether or not they have an economic moat, their fair value profit drivers. All of these things are contained in one report, and it just makes the research process very fast and easy and efficient. So first things first, what does this company do? Let's scroll down just a bit to the business strategy and outlook. Verisign plays a critical role atop the domain name system, or DNS, that allows computers to convert human-readable websites into IP addresses. The company is responsible for maintaining the root zone and 2 of the root zone servers, A&J, that represent a network of servers that help direct DNS resolvers to the appropriate registry or IP address discovery. Verisign generates revenue through its registry services as the exclusive operator of the .com and .net registries. Verisign is able to charge annual fees for every domain that registers or renews as a .com or a .net. So this company is huge. We are constructive on the Verisign strategy as the operator of some of the most critical internet infrastructure around the globe. Although Verisign does not directly monetize its role as the root zone maintainer and operator, we believe it demonstrates credibility and trust from the regulators to maintain its role as registry for .com and .net. So this company has a wide economic moat because these are the two most common domain names. And it adds a lot of credibility to your website to have a .com or a .net at the end of it. And Morningstar determines that yes, this company has a wide moat. It also shows that this company has low uncertainty, which means it's very easy to predict going forward. And they have a exemplary capital allocation. Not only that, Morningstar determines that this company is currently undervalued. And if we go back through time, we can see that there are very short periods where the company is undervalued, and most of the time it is fairly valued or overpriced. So finding Verisign, which is a predictable company with a wide moat, with a great balance sheet, it's a premium company. Finding this company at a fair share price would be a great time to buy. But we came here initially to find the forward revenue, and I got distracted talking about how great of a company this is. Here's the fair value and profit drivers section of the Morningstar Equity Analyst Report. If I scroll down a bit, this is the line that I'm looking for. We forecast a 5-year compound annual growth rate for revenue of 6.5%. That means over the next 5 years, their revenue is going to grow on average 6.5% per year. And so that is one of my big assumptions on the spreadsheet right here. Revenue growth for years 1 through 5. 6.5%. For years 6 through 10, it is very difficult to find analyst projections. So I typically will use a value that is conservative. In this case, I'm going to use 3%. That's roughly equal to inflation. I think that Verisign will be able to increase its revenue at least by inflation going forward. So as long as I set the bar low enough on my list of assumptions, then it is likely that they will be able to exceed my assumptions, which then gets me a greater return than my minimum discount rate, which is 8.35% per year. So the final revenue assumption is the perpetual growth rate. Once again, I'm choosing a value roughly equal to inflation. You cannot have a perpetual growth rate greater than inflation. Otherwise, this company would gobble up the entire economy eventually. So obviously that's not going to happen. So we have 3% perpetual growth rate. These are all of my revenue assumptions right here. Now for the free cash flow margin. I've got my initial free cash flow margin at 54%. The average over the last 5 years is 57.5%. So why the discrepancy? There are a few adjustments that I like to make to the free cash flow margin. And if I scroll down, this table is where those adjustments are made. The first thing that I adjust free cash flow by is R&D, research and development. Some companies are able to drive more free cash flow into the future through R&D, but in this case, I don't want to give any credit for research and development because I think they have to spend money here just to maintain their current hold on these domains and maintain their trust. They have to continually invest in their security, and this is going to be required for them to stay in the position that they're at because there's always going to be new exploits that people find to hack into these domains, and so they're going to be required to have additional R&D spending just to maintain their hold at the top. And the same goes for CapEx. I'm not giving them any credit for capital expenditures. Some companies are able to grow significantly through CapEx. In this case, I'm not going to give any credit. There may be a case to be made to give some additional free cash flow credit here, but that would raise my bar. And so I'm interested in staying as conservative as possible. For acquisitions, sometimes I count against a company for acquisitions because if they are acquiring other companies just to raise their revenue, but it's not actually giving them any additional margin or there's not any synergistic effect with the acquisitions, then they'll actually get counted against on cash spent for acquiring other companies. In this case, there have not been any acquisitions going back 5 years. And then finally, on stock-based compensation, I count 95% against because this is simply another way for them to pay their employees. They, instead of giving them cash, they are able to pay them in stock. And so, yes, they have more cash flow because they're not dumping cash into their employees, but a lot of these companies will turn back around and then buy back the shares anyway. And so the cash still gets spent. So I count most of the stock-based compensation against. This makes my new average 53.74, but more recently, their free cash flow margin is about 60.5%. So I'm going with roughly the average over the last 5 years, even though this value has been trending up for the last 5 years. So that's where we get 54%. Now for free cash flow margin growth, I have it growing by 0.66 per year for the next 5 years. So let's talk about where I got that. If I go back to the Morningstar Equity Analyst Report, I can see right here that they say margins should continue to expand as the company benefits from continued pricing power. This comes from their having a wide moat. As a result, gross margin should improve to nearly 90% by the end of the forecast period. We would anticipate the company to maintain a healthy amount of research and development costs as it invests in the security and the stability of the DNS ecosystem. However, general and administrative costs should grow at a slower rate than revenue, allowing for some more additional margin expansion. So they are showing margin growth going forward as this company has more pricing power. So there's also a table down here where they spell out a lot of their revenue growth and margin growth assumptions. Right here, they show margin growth for the forecast period of 2026 through 2030 at 6.5% growth. But let's look at the margins. So in 2025, they show an operating margin of 67.7, and then that margin is growing throughout the forecast period up to 69. For EBITDA, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, they show 71. It's growing to 72 throughout the forecast period. Net margin, 50% up to 51. And then finally, for their free cash flow margin, just like I showed a spike in free cash flow margin in 2025, they show it dropping in 2026, but growing throughout the forecast period. Their average is 55.3. I started with 54, and then I'm showing 0.66% growth every single year. So just very slow margin expansion throughout the forecast period. So they're showing their initial 2026 free cash flow margin is 54.6. So I'm starting mine out even a little bit lower than Morningstar. The result of all of these assumptions are my projection of $212 per share. That represents 2% overvalued, just very slightly overvalued. So I would call this company, according to this set of assumptions, almost exactly fair valued. And for a company like this, which is so great, it's just a premium company, finding it at a fair value is like finding a lesser company at a great price, because this company is typically trading at a premium. So very likely the share price will move up even though the company's story doesn't improve. The share price is going to bounce around between a premium and fair value. And so I'm going to get some price appreciation just because this company is normally trading at a premium. And then on top of that, the company has pricing power. So it's going to continue to create more and more profit, which the fair share price is going to move up by roughly 8.35% every year anyway, according to my projections. So I am very happy to buy into a premium company with low uncertainty, with a wide moat at a fair share price. That is a really great find. Now, I want to also talk about these other cells right here, Analyst low, average, and high. So for the next 5 years, for revenue growth, instead of just taking one estimate, I also like to take a wide range of analyst assumptions. So if I go to stockanalysis.com, I go to the forecast tab and scroll down to the revenue projections, we can see that for fiscal years 2026, there's 7 different analysts, and then going into 2028 through 2030, it drops down to 3 different analysts, but there are lots of revenue growth assumptions. And so if I copy this table showing the lowest to the highest and then giving me an average as well, I can paste that information into my spreadsheet in this section right here, and then that gives me a range of possible returns on my investment. So if the most pessimistic analysts are correct, which shows basically flat revenue over the next 5 years, then I could lose 24%, not including my 8% return per year. So if I'm wanting to get 8% return every year, that means I should be buying in at 164. So after 5 years, I may not have a very large return. That's in the worst case scenario, according to the analyst. But if the highest, most optimistic analysts are correct, then I would have a 24% margin of safety. And then, of course, the average analyst opinion puts me right at the fair share price of this company. So for me, if I go through all of Warren Buffett's holdings, most of the companies, when I put them into this spreadsheet, are showing that they are trading above their fair value. But in this case, Verisign is trading right at its fair value. And for Warren Buffett's strategy, which is buying a great company at a fair share price, I am happy to buy this company right now. If you like this style of stock analysis, I have a public YouTube portfolio series where I invest in a different company every week. I run through this process. My performance has been above the S&P 500. Now, this is not a very old portfolio. We've only been using this for about a year and 3 months, but our performance over the last year and 3 months is 18.5%, while the S&P 500 is about 16%. So we are slightly overperforming. We have over 50 stocks in the portfolio, and it is growing every single week. If you were able to tune in on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., you could even give me a few stocks that you want me to check out, and I would be happy to look at those companies on stream live, do a surface level free cash flow analysis to see if they warrant a deeper dive into the company. I hope to see you on Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. for my stream. See you there.